to the Dialectic Space Podcast. Tonight, as we reflect on the meaning of nationhood and the long arc of our collective journey, we turn to history, not simply as a record of the past, but as a compass to the future of the Gambia. It is therefore my distinct honor and privilege to host one of the foremost custodians of our national memory, prominent Gambian historian and eminent scholar Hassoum Ceesay. For decades, Mr. Ceesay has stood at the intellectual frontier of documenting, preserving, and interpreting the Gambian story. At a time when many societies struggle with historical amnesia, his work has consistently reminded us that a nation which reflects its past risks losing its sense of identity. Born in Banjul and shaped by an academic journey that carried him across continents in the pursuit of historical knowledge, Hassoum Ceesay has devoted his life to ensuring that Gambians see themselves reflected in their own history. His scholarship is not confined to the walls of academia, rather, it lives in public discourse, in museums, in classrooms, and in the growing national consciousness that our stories matter and must be told by us. Through important works such as Gambian Women and Introductory History, he helped illuminate the often overlooked contributions of women to national development, expanding the boundaries of what we consider worthy of historical attention. In Patriots, Profiles of Eminent Gambians, he carefully documented the lives of men and women whose sacrifices and leadership helped shape the foundations of our republic. Meanwhile, founding father Persa Njie, A Moral Biography, offers a profound examination of political leadership, moral conviction, and the complexities of building a nation in the aftermath of colonial rule. Yet, beyond his publications, Mr. Ceesay has been a leading voice in advocating for the preservation of cultural heritage, warning that history is not merely about remembrance, it's also about restoration, restoring dignity, strengthening identity, and even unlocking economic potentials through cultural awareness. Tonight's conversation comes at a particularly meaningful moment. Independence was not simply a constitutional event, it was a declaration of possibility, a statement that Gambians would define their own destiny. But independence is not a destination, it is an ongoing project, continuously shaped by choices we make as a people. So, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we will journey backwards to move forward. We will revisit the road to independence, examine the defining moments that forge our national character, and reflect honestly on how far we have come, and perhaps how far we must still go. And we will explore the uncharted undertones of ethnicity and the intersection of politics, interrogate the narratives that have inherited, and ask whether we are telling our story with clarity, confidence, and ownership it deserves. Because ultimately, history is not about dates and archives alone. It's about understanding who we are, confronting who we've been, and imagining who we might yet become. Mr. Ceesay, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome you. Thank you for joining us in the Dialectic Space Podcast. Uh, how are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Sonko, to you and the large audience of your program. I must say this is a serious program. That's why when you approached me a month ago, I developed cold feet, so to speak, because I have been following the program for 3 months now. Most recently, you spoke to Dr. Njie, and before that to Chairman Njie and others. This is a rare program in the Gambian media sphere because it is serious. You know, it is a program. It has a scholarly, intellectual, analytical, inclination, if you like, or disposition. So I want to commend you and to congratulate you.
Thank you very much
for doing this. My name is Hassoum Ceesay, Hassoum Ceesay. And like you said, since 1996, I have been working to discover of Gambian history. I protocols of the program because I looking at the previous episodes. You have a staple.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Hassoum, for really very kind and generous words. Again, I like talking to people. I like really learning about the journey of people, but also the very important intellectual works that you've been doing for a very long time in the Gambia. And so I think more than anything, the honor is mine to have you here with me today, both as a student of history, a student of law, but most importantly, as a young Gambian who is interested to learn about the importance of our history, not only as Gambians, but as Africans. So we are going to begin from the top, as we always do. Mr. Ceesay, if you would please tell us really what sparked your fascination with history. I'm sure at the time when you make the conscious decision to venture into that area, there must have been motivating factors, or there must have been factors around you that you looked at, or individuals around you that perhaps had so much impact on you to influence your decision to get into this area of academics, or profession, so to speak. So, what really sparked your fascination into history? If you will begin the conversation from there.
Well, thank you very much. I must say that I grew up in a very, if you like, provincial, or if you like, environment in Panchang in Opasal in the early 70s. But it was rural, but at the same time cosmopolitans. Rural in the sense that it's a village, in Opasal, but cosmopolitan in the sense that it comprises people, from different working backgrounds. The Surgas, what they call the strange farmers, Malian, Guinean, Guinea-Bissawian, Casamance, the Senegalese. You had the Lebanese traders, we used to call them Syrians, the Lebanese traders, in Kawur, in Panchang, partaking of the lucrative groundnuts business. You had the civil servants, the teachers, forestry workers, development workers. So this was the sort of environment. And because my father was the head of the village, the alkali, the Boromdek, all the people passed through our our home. Yes, in those days, we report to the alkali. So the history in me really, I grew up hearing all these stories of the Couture, exiles, from Sekou Toure's, regime in Guinea-Conakry, strange farmers, running from the Portuguese, war, the liberation war, the Guinea-Bissau liberation war. People trying to escape, the stringent economic measures of Leopold Sédar Senghor in Senegal. Stories about the First World War, the Second World War, surrounded me. About the year that Hitler bombed that, De Gaulle's people bombed Dakar in 1940, to force out the Vichy. Those kind of stories. The Père Njie tales, Sadala's, stories. Yeah. So at a very young age, at Panjang, I got accustomed to these, tall tales, if you like. They are usually tall tales, the exaggerations. And the Gables will do their work. Our Gables, those whose surnames are Mbub, Yang, singing praises. Yeah, so all those, and the Radio Gambia, those were the golden years of Radio Gambia. Pinchum, Senegambia, Jebel Samba, Alaji said Kamal. So really, Mr. Sonko, it was a hot pot of of inspirations, if you like.
Inspirations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so, how did your academic journey shape your intellectual outlook? Obviously, you had all of these defining moments and individuals, and really episodes that occurred at the time when you were growing up that sort of entices your curiosity to get into this area. And obviously you make the decision to go to school, but how did your really academic journey shape your intellectual outlook?
Well, my academic journey, was quite significant in all this. Like I went to the village school in '77. We were the first pupils. Just after, well, not quite just after, but it was after independence. So there was this rush to create more schools in the provinces. So Pantan School was opened in '77. My father had to show the example. Being the bottom dog, he had to show the example. So he registered me. That's where it started. Then in '83, I went to Armitage. It was by then the closest high school. Now at Armitage, everything started. I had a mentor, a Sierra Leonean teacher, Mr. Mbayo. I wonder if he's still alive. He was very generous with books, news magazines, Newsweek, Time, West Africa, New African. He put me into the library, so I got exposed to this encyclopedia, history books, Edu Boahen, the famous book, Topics in West African History. Yeah, so the school, Armitage, was very, very influential. In this, largely because my curious mind was nourished. With reading materials on history, literature. I think that was very interesting. And after Armitage, coming to the urban area,
I think Hassoum, can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me? Are you with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So you were walking us through your academic journey. So from Armitage, you came to Greater Banjul area, and then if you would continue on how your academic journey evolved all the way to when you go for your bachelor's degree.
Yes. I didn't. I thought that was going to be boring, because I have a lot more. Mr. Sonko, I have a lot more to say in this 1 hour than to rehearse my CV. I thought that was going to be boring. Yeah, like I said, Teachers College, Farabe College, Sierra Leone. The war. The rebels invaded. We ran away. Completed with the St. Mary's University. Extension program. I did postgraduate courses in museum studies in Nairobi. Back to the Gambia. Did a postgraduate, degree again in African history. But like I said, I didn't want to rehearse all this. I wanted to spend more time answering your questions.
No, totally. We lost. We've missed. I think he's gonna come back momentarily. Okay, good. Thank you. And Mr. Ceesay, usually the reason I like to begin there is because a lot of my audiences, at least from the feedback that I've gotten, we've lost him again for a second. We apologize for that. This is mostly, I think, internet problems from the Gambia.
I joined the National Center for Arts and Culture in 1998. But 2 years before that, I had started writing a column in the Daily Observer in 95 called History Corner. My good uncle and mentor, Alhaji A. Chambu, the great historian, he used to anchor the column. Now, when he retired, he asked me to, pick it up from where he left off. Now, what that did was to expose me to the Gambia National Archives. Yes. And for the first time, I was exposed to the vast reservoir of secondary and primary material on all aspects of Gambian history.
Again, apologies. We're trying to get as much fluidity to continue with this conversation as possible.
Recording.
Mr. Ceesay, I don't.
I mean the colonialism.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know why this is happening, but we'll try to get it sorted so we can continue.
Archives. So I want to stress this point. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, you're getting interrupted. You're leaving unending. I think for the last few minutes you've done it for 3 times. So I don't know why it's happening, but because of the essence of time, like you said, we'll just continue with a lot of the other issues, just because of the constraint we're having with the internet. And so I think I would just like to ask at this point, really, the question about independence, considering Gambia gained its independence truly in 1965, February 18. And if you would really talk about very briefly what this really mean politically, psychologically, and culturally for the Gambia. What does independent really mean?
Yeah. So I mean, what do we do now? What do we do?
Oh no. So I asked you a question to sort of like move on to the independence bit of it, because of we're just struggling a lot, and I think the audience are missing a lot of what was being said in that bit of the journey that we were walking through in terms of your academics. But for some reason, I just couldn't hear any part of it. If people are able to hear what he was saying, you can let me know in the comment section. But I couldn't follow any part of it at all. But you are just leaving. You are just being interrupted non-stop.
Yeah. So can I proceed?
Yes, please proceed.
Well, yes. So like I said, I mean my exposure to the National Archives was also very, very formative. It was very useful and inspirational. I got the proof that there are enough material, to help anybody who wants to sort of, recreate, reassemble, reinterpret almost every aspect of Gambian history. Because the colonialists were good record keepers.
Mm-hmm.
The records in the archives date to 1812. I think the oldest record. That's close to 200 years. Well, more than 200 years. Just to tell you how old the records are.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, every subject sector is represented. Forestry, fisheries. Those are things that are usually that can easily pass off as mundane and even arcane. But they are there. The files are there. The environment. On immigration, on the colonial period itself, border demarcation between 1889 to 1901. So that was also very, very important, inspiration. And then, of course, working at the museum, since '98, the National Museum, that is an added sort of, advantage, because like the House of History, people come, guests, former colonial officials, come introduce themselves, bring you photos, documents dating to the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. So all that, added up to really make me heavily engaged in history of the Gambia, so enough to do it in some pieces, depending on our interests, with the hope that someday somebody will be interested in maritime history of the Gambia. Someday somebody will be interested in the history of forestry, in the history of fisheries, in the history of the press, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Yeah. So, on our road to independence as a country, I would like you to spend some time to talk to us about what were some of really the defining moments in terms of either the individuals or certain set of circumstances that contributed so much to having Gambia acquire its independent status or otherwise its sovereign status in 1965. So, what specific instances would you say was it either through the efforts of trade unionists or was it through the efforts of specific individuals in the persons of either a former prime minister or former political party leaders that contributed significantly to Gambia gaining its independent status? But if you would spend some time to really talk about that too.
Well, for us to discuss, have to discuss really first independent
From colonial rule. From colonial rule. Yes.
Now that is important. No, this is the most important question that you can ever ask, because even this morning, people came to the house to ask me, but why are you celebrating this? It's such, a question. Frightens me. Independence should be celebrated. In fact, over 3 days, 4 days, because it was the day, 18 February 1965, that was the day that we regained our freedom. Now, it is easy for this generation to ask why are we celebrating. They have no what it was like to live. It was oppressive to the system. It was domineering. It was also repressive. Oppressive laws, for example, that were designed were done so with the sole aim to keep the people subservient. The colonial laws, they call them ORDINANCES. That how do we suppress and oppress colonial subjects? What can stay where they are? Make them violent and feel like so oppressive system that we take for granted now did not exist. certificate. As long as your journey ended. Okay. Even those who were born in Patriots and Kombo Banco, the colony, were subjects of Her Majesty, okay, or His Majesty, depending on who was the King of England. Basically, a subject, had no rights. We were not citizens. We only, started to become citizens after 18 February 1965. So the basic idea of citizenship was not present during the colonial rule. For example, in the capital in Bathos, along the Marina, from 6 p.m. there was a curfew. Okay, why? Because all those bungalows, around Atlantic Hotel, now being used by some of the ministries and departments like fisheries, forestry, they were, these of the colonial officials. And by 6, they are having their siesta, their naps. Okay, no African should be seen in those areas. If you are seen, you spend the night at mile 2. Even something as mundane as drumming, beating the sabbath, was forbidden during certain times of the day, during colonial rule. If you were coming, from Sukuta early morning, you walk, selling your tomatoes, to the Albert Market, at the Denton Bridge, you were given an entry permit. Why? Because Sukuta was protectorate. And now you are entering the colony, so you have to have an entry permit. And they will tell you, if 6 o'clock p.m. finds you in Batos, you spend the night at mile 2. The following morning, you clean the streets, and then you are expelled back to Sukuta. And you cannot enter Batos again for another week. So these were some of the realities of that Gambians lived through under colonial rule.
But political party. Was it also at this particular time? How were Gambians living among themselves? Say, for example, the idea that we already had our own local system of governance or administration that is not the philosophy of democracy as the Westerners found it, for example, that our people were living in a democratic way at our own local levels, even in those days, even when colonialism was in existence, or even the coming of colonialism in that part of the world where we are. I don't know if Mr. Ceesay is still here, but I'm going to try to put him back.
These indigenous, systems. For example, I'll give an example. In Gunjur, they had a traditional power sharing system. Pode Silla, came. Now, when he came and conquered Combo and established the Islamic State of Combo, the Emirate of Combo, in the 1870s, he chose Gunjur as his capital. But his Njatigis, those who welcomed him at Gunjur, were the Labos. So he was elegant enough to say, okay, you are my host. You will be temporal leaders, the alcalis, and I am the emir. It's an Islamic emir. So the tourists will be the imams and will be the emir, while the Davos will be the heads of the village. It was a power sharing system. In the Badibus, there was a rotational, power sharing system. Those villages, Jumansar, the Jadamas, the Mambures, in Nyomi, the kingship, was rotational. There was a power sharing arrangement. Now and then it's a Sonko, now and then it's a Mani, and now and then it's a Jamme. So these were, in traditional institutional arrangements that were present here to make sure that there was no dictatorship, to ensure that all segments of the society felt part of the system. No one was left out. But colonial rule destroyed all these institutions. Okay, and they imposed a new system of chieftaincy. protectorate. Musa Moros Fuladu, and demoted him. They told him, well, you can no longer be called a king. Musa Moro told them, in fact, I am more than a king, I'm an emperor. Because Fuladu is up to Guinea-Bissau. They tell them, well, you are now a chief. So, and that's how they introduced this idea, this string idea of chieftains. But we were never, we don't know chiefs. We in Ubu, you are a Mansa, But the British said, well, there is only one sovereign, that is His Majesty. Well, or at the time, Her Majesty Queen Victoria. So they destroyed, the institutional, grandeur, the institutional checks and balances that our ancestors created so as to live in societies of equilibrium, in societies where there was fair play, power sharing, and societies that detested and even had the checks and balances against dictatorship. But by 1900, all these systems have been destroyed. The Gambia was now divided into 36, districts, Upper Salum, Lower Salum, Upper this, Central this, Lower that, and the system has remained until today. So really, I was describing how oppressive, and domineering colonial rule was, and this is another example how colonial rule destroyed in the institutions that our ancestors created, so that they will live happy lives. And how they, brought in new ideas like chieftaincy. Boring labor, the tourists, in Combo South, in Combo East, all these chiefs were given dictatorial powers by the colonialists, because the colonialists said we wanted to rule Gambia on the cheap. No need to bring in 40, tubabs from England, pay them pension, pay them hardship allowance, give them houses at Cape Point. Let us rule them through the chiefs. Okay? These Africans were used to obeying their kings. So just demote kings, chiefs, and then tell the chiefs, well, just be like, okay? Yeah. So some of these chiefs, like Soradabo in Wood, was so powerful that he had a prison system. He can arrest you. The next morning, he put you in it. They had a police force, very, very small but violent. They had a field force after the Gambia Regiment of the Royal West African Frontier Force in 1958. So the process of repression present.
Hassoum, I'm struggling to hear. There is so much,
and so on. Yeah.
For some reason, there is so much interruption coming. I suspect it's from your internet. You're saying so many important things that I'm missing, that I really would love to know, and I'm sure our audience as well. But there's a lot of interruptions coming. We can barely hear what you're saying. I cannot get half of the response that you're providing as well for some reason. But could you just confirm for me one more time? Can you hear what I'm saying?
Can you repeat the question, please?
No, I haven't asked the question. I'm just saying that there's a lot of interruptions. I suppose it's with the internet from the Gambia, and so that's something totally and completely beyond our control. But I haven't got a bit of the response that you are providing. It was just being interrupted constantly.
So do I go ahead or?
Yes, go ahead, please. Hopefully, this works fine. But go ahead, please. Thank you.
I hope it was a good
Yes,
show. This is
thank you. We're happy to have you.
yeah, but like I said, our traditional institutions. I said yes, they were there, but colonial rule destroyed them, and they downgraded our national languages into vernacular. Okay, they ensured that English became the language of the elite. So if you wanted to prosper, and even before colonial rule, we were literate in Arabic. If you go to these clerical settlements, Medina Sering Mas, Fas, Barakunda, Sutukung, Tonyataba, all these clerical settlements. You had hundreds of years of literacy in Arabic. Okay, writing books, writing sermons, and communicating in Arabic. For example, for the Sila, communicated with the Batos governor in Arabic. He had his letterhead, his stamp. Musa Molo did the same thing. Wrote letters to the governor. These are in the archives, in Arabic. So there was a decent level of literacy in Arabic. Now, when the colonialists came, English became the new language of the elite. Progress was measured against one's, comprehension of that language. Our national languages, like I said, were downgraded to vernacular. And now, this was the nature of colonial rule. And remember, I have not talked about taxation. That is another topic. It was a system that fed on taxation. Although there was no representation, there were no development projects, but there were up to 15 types of taxes that people paid during colonial rule. There was even cattle tax. There was something called pastorate tax, hot tax. There was even something called tax. Exploited the groundnut, was forced upon us as a cash crop, so that farmers will be able to pay these taxes in cash. And no effort was made to diversify or to promote food crops, for example. They were interested in what? Your grounds, so that people will pay their taxes. Yes.
So, what would you say were the defining turning points in our road to independence from the colonialists? And what were, some of the roles of individuals like P.S. Njie, Sadauda Jawara, Edward Francis Small? You talked about very briefly taxation, the forms of taxation that they were using, and I remember very vividly.
This kind of state of affairs. This state of affairs, of course, could not continue.
Yes.
Soon a new elite emerged to contest this, and this was the elite of Edward.
Hassoum, are you with me? Mr. Ceesay? Hello?
I said Edward Francis.
Yeah, yes, you're back. You're back on again. Please go ahead. Please proceed. Please proceed. Yes.
Yes. For starting the anti-colonial agitation. As far back as 1920, when he and like-minded colonial subjects in Sierra Leone, like Wallace Johnson in Ghana, like Kesley Herford in Nigeria, like Herbert Macaulay, and the National Council for British West Africa. Because Small, against colonial rule, had to take a regional outlook. He believed that none of the countries had the attraction to really make a dent on the colonial armor, so to speak, to create a chink sort of on the colonial armor. So he created this National Council for British West Africa in 1920. And that is a story that, Gambians should be proud of. It was Small who created this colonial movement, and then he had a newspaper also, the Gambia Outlook and Senegambia Reporter. He was a true Senegambian, and he started agitation, using the columns of the newspaper, to mobilize opinion against colonial rule, illegal taxation, the racism of colonialism. You had something like the Butters Club, for example, for Tubabs only, and that's where the National Museum is now located. All the houses along the Cape, where the summer residences of the British. In the Gambia will be an ordinary officer. So I never suffered that, for example. His boss, when he returned from the director of the was
sorry. Yes, you're back on again. You left momentarily when you were giving your response.
I said these were some of the racist tendencies that Small exposed in his newspaper. And by the time he had applied so much pressure on the colonial rulers that in 1947 we had a constitution that brought in the elective element into Gambian politics. Because before 1947, all appointments to the Legislative Council, which made the laws, were done by the governor. I'm
sorry, guys. This is different. The interruption, I did not anticipate this at all. Mr. Ceesay and I have both been really excited to have this conversation. As you can see, he has so much to share. We have so much to learn from his work, but I think the internet is, from his end, is really being horrendous, and there is very little we can do in that respect. But hopefully he tries to get back on, and we'll try to see what is left of this. Let me see if I can get hold of him on the phone. Okay, he's back on.
I was saying in 1951, he agitated. In 1951, he agitated for the introduction of political parties. So there was a new constitution which allowed the formation of political parties in 1951. And another thing to be proud of is that this month marks 75 years of uninterrupted multi-party democratic system in the Gambia. Because the first political party, the Gambia Democratic Party, was established by the Reverend Njie on the 22nd February 1951. 22nd February 1951 at Hagan Street at the school the Roman Catholic school.
My bad, guys. This Hassoum, you're back again.
As I was saying, by this month we have 75 years of multi-party experience in this country. I think that is also a Gambian exceptionalism, if you like, because few countries on the continent can boast of having that long period of uninterrupted multi-party electoral system or political system. So and Small also mentored, I am Gabo Jahumpa, another nationalist leader. His ideas also went into the head of people like P.S. Njie, of the United Party, a brilliant lawyer, full of charisma, who created the UP in 1954. And then also, the founders of the PPP in 1950.
God help me.
Yeah, I was saying there is Salada knew or met small, but I'm sure the ideas of the PPP were the ideas of Edward Francis Small, because what Small did was to narrow the gap between the colony and the protectorate, because the British were eager to have two Gambias in one country, the Gambia of the colony, that's Batos and Kombotuba Banco, with the schools, the clinics, subjects, status, some few electricity lines, a few telephone lines, and the Gambia of the protectorate, which was basically completely neglected, by the colonial rulers, even though it comprised, 95% of the population. So Small fought against this. He warned Gambians that there should be no protectorate, no colony. We should see ourselves as Gambians. This is why he worked with the farmers in Badibu, with the farmers in Salem. He formed them into cooperatives. He befriended the chiefs. Very few people of Batos, did that at the time. But Small befriended the chiefs. He wasn't, in any way arrogant, towards the protectorate. So these were the people who really stood against colonial rule. But I must say there was also an external context, because people like Jahumpa were friends to Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, or Sajefo. Jahumpa met Nkrumah in Manchester in 1945 during the Pan-African Congress. Ghana played a very, very important role in supporting the Gambia's independence struggle. Nkrumah, sent money to Jahumpa. He even sent money to Jawara, in the early days, so that the Gambia will free itself from colonial rule. Sekou Touré's Guinea, also, channel funds secretly to the PPP. Even the Senegalese, Senghor, was quite friendly to Jawara, and despite the temptations, in some quarters for Senegal to sort of make Gambia into its, 8th province at the time, 8th region, Senghor, steadfastly refused this. He believed he could go it alone and become an independent, sovereign state, which it did on 18 February 1965.
What was the significance of the Tacito movement as well? You did talk about this publicly in some of your writings.
Yeah, Tacito is one of the unsung great philosophies of Africa. Julius Nyerere, Julius Nyerere, had, Ujama.
We're being interrupted again. Hassoum, are you with me?
And on Wednesday, February 1960, on radio, he said something very clear.
Hassoum, are you with me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You have been interrupted. If you take that one more time, please. Yes, please. You were talking about Tacito. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yeah. He said out of one Gambians that independence will not turn our granules into diamonds. He had that phrase. It's a very memorable phrase in his statement to the Gambian people on 17 February 1965. So immediately after independence, he started this idea of Tacito, And it meant help yourself. He will tell communities he was a frank politician that we have to, admit that you want a school, you want a clinic. Everybody wants a school. Everybody wants a clinic. But how do you get it before the others? You start establishing a school. I get some, grass from the bush, make a thatch, okay? Cut some log seeds and ask for a teacher. I will send you a teacher. That's Desito. Start. I'll join you. Yeah. Are you wanted?
So,
a causeway to your rice fields. He was in Kuntao, early 60s, 66, 67. He went to Bakadaji Jailan, he had this Silaman there who was a good friend of his, then to Kuntao. They are saying, the women were saying, yes, we cannot access our rice fields, we want, an access. He said, well, each of you carry a boulder, from the quarry. After 10 days, you will have somewhere to, step on to reach your rice fields. And then when I come back, I'll put a brick for you. So that was Desito. And Mr. Sonko, it was one of the most successful developmental philosophies in Africa. It is sad that nobody has written a book or on it, but it was a very, very successful, developmental philosophy. Gambians embraced it wholeheartedly. If you look at the archive, the newspapers, Desito schools, Desito causeways, Desito, dispensaries, we have been built, we have been created in every nook and cranny of this country. Me, Panchang started as a Desito school. Yeah, because when Amulajani was elected MP in March 1977, the villagers told him he wanted a school. So he said, well, cut some grass, some palm leaves, and just make a room. When it is ready, you tell me. And when the room was ready, that was where we started, primary one. Yeah, under some flimsy, roof, grass and harang, and that was it. We sat on logs. But by the end of the academic year, a brick classroom, was completed by the government, and 2 teachers, were posted, pros and ustads. So this is how Desito worked, and it worked. It worked. Like I said, it is sad that there has not been much introspection on it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that you asked the question, because I am a particularly of this Desito, because a lot of archival work, and every month Sadada will be in the country, inaugurating Desito projects every month. He was one in the villages. Of course, you will tell me, well, he had to, because there was no radio service, there was no TV service. So the only way to explain government policy was to be on the ground. Well, yes, I agree. About that, he did very well. He and his ministers, inaugurating Desito projects. Sadly, politics came in after the 81 coup, Sambasanyang coup. The toxic, the political, toxic atmosphere, particularly with the NCP, that contributed to the demise of the Desito philosophy. But it was, development very successful ideology.
So to move on a little bit, after we gain our independent status, if you would talk briefly about the really transformative political parties that we had at the time, and what role did each of them or their leaders play as we move on into Gambia as a sovereign republic after 1965?
You wanted me to talk briefly on the political parties.
Yes, and obviously you've mentioned some of them already earlier, but were there other political players that played an instrumental role towards?
Yes,
Yes,
yes. There are other political players. Like women. You had this phenomenon of Yaikomin starting in 1951. The Reverend Njie when he created the, Gambia Democratic Party. He knew the power of women, mobilizers, because in those days in the Gambia it was wealth. Men were very poor. There have been several studies, sociological studies, of how Gambian women in the 50s and 60s were economically well better off than than men.
Hassoum, you're being interrupted. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Hannah Foster was one political, a woman whose story we tell. He bankrolled the Gambia Democratic Party.
Wow.
Reverend Faye was a churchman. He had no wealth, to run a party, a political party. The same with the PPP. Sanjali had money, but Sanjali was expelled in 61. 2 years after the party was created. So Jawara was a poor, director. He had no money. So it was women like Ajafatu Dingjata, of Bakau, who poured their, into this money, their millions into the PPP, to make it work. P.S. Njie had money, but the sister Yadiko was a very, very influential lady who helped to, sort of pitch the UP tent into all corners of the country. You had women professionals, like Rosamond Fowlis, she was among the first Gambian women to own and drive a car, in the 40s. These were women of substance who lent their support to these political parties, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. And then even when universal adult suffrage was introduced in 1960, Lady Jawara, Lasalauda's first wife, Hannah, contested, the parliamentary seat for Soldier Town. In those days, Banjul, electoral, districts. But in 66, the PPP gerrymandered the capital and reduced the number from 5 to 3, north, south, and central. And then you had other women, playing equally important role, in the parties as mobilizers. So when we mention the political parties of the independence era, we have to talk about women. Like Miss Rachel Palmer, the nurse, attended the Lancaster House talks of 1961. These were constitutional talks called by, attended by the political players to chart a new constitution for the Gambia. In the 1964 constitutional talks at Marlborough House also, there was a representation, of civil society, of the trade unions and so on. Because Mr. Sonko, I want to tell you that you in your prompt you said, where are we missing the plot? Maybe I should just anticipate you.
Yes, go ahead, please. Yes. Hassoum, you've been interrupted. If you hear me, let me know and we can proceed. Can you hear me? Yes, I did say, why did we miss?
I can hear you.
Yes, please take it again.
I can hear you. I'm anticipating. I am anticipating you.
Yes,
we have not missed the plot. If you ask me, my answer is
okay.
With actors and actresses, stage. Now and then, like in 81 with Kuko Sambasanya, or the last 3-4 years of Yahya Jammeh's regime, maybe we missed the line momentarily, and that is normal for every actor and actress, but we have never missed the plot. But what we are missing, Mr. Sonko, is the influence of the trade unions. In the 50s, since 1929, first strike in the. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, go ahead.
The first strike in the Commonwealth was organized in the Gambia by Edward Francis Small for the dock workers and half-died to have better pay. It is in the history books. That is another Gambian success story we should be proud of. Now, from 1929,
you're gone again, Mr. Ceesay.
And you name Modo Arababa. These were household names in the Gambia, trade unionists. Played a very, very important role in anti-colonial struggle. Like Emi Jallow organized a strike in 1961. For 8 days, the Gambia was at a standstill. Even civil servants did not go to work. And when the British arrested him, the people stormed Mile 2 and freed him. So but the PP government, clipped the wings of the labor unions. In 77, the workers' union was banned. Later some were, sort of corrupted. Giving government jobs, government contracts, to mollify, if not to pacify them. Going back to your question, I don't think, in fact, I believe we have not missed the plot as a country. We have not, to be frank. Why I say that, at independence, this country was in such a bad state that few people gave it the chance to survive. Some of the journalists who came to cover the independence celebrations from newspapers, from New York Times, Times of London, said so. Go to the archives that this is an improbable country. This country cannot survive. It will take a few weeks. It will collapse, like Zanzibar did when they became independent in 1964, or like Congo did under Patriots Lumumba when it collapsed 70 days after independence. So that was the scenario that was being painted for. We were so poor that every capable finance minister had to receive bags of money from London to pay salaries. For 2 years we did that, 65 up to June 67. For us to pay salaries, they had to ship money, cash in bags, through Las Palmas, on the British Caledonian flight, so that Gambia can pay salaries. But because of hard work and modesty of our leaders, by 1967 our economy was so strong that Britain was asked to stop giving us money to pay salaries. You see, so we have not missed the plot.
We have not.
and remember our role in international diplomacy. Sadauda's role, in human rights, such that our country became the capital of human rights. How the Gambia helped the liberation movements in Guinea-Bissau. Amilcar Cabral had a Gambian passport, because from Dakar, where he was, the PIGC had an office. He was based in Conakry, but he will be in Dakar most of the times. He will travel, to Banjul, stay the night at the Atlantic, and early morning he will smuggle himself through Casamas to the liberated areas in Guinea-Bissau. So Amilcar Cabral was given a Gambian passport.
Wow. That's profound.
It was because of that that people like Ansumana Mane, General Yapa Kamara, General Samba Lamin Mane, all those people who became heroes in the Guinea-Bissau liberation struggle. That's how Amilcar Cabral recruited them from his hotel room in the Atlantic Hotel, where he passed nights, to escape the Portuguese intelligence, who were after him, all the time. Gambia helped the ANC in South Africa. As a student in Armitage, some of my classmates were from Namibia. Some were from South Africa on Gambian government scholarship.
Wow.
You see? So even in diplomacy, this country had always been able to punch, of its height. The Gambia's role in ending the Iran-Iraq war. I will not spend another second on that. The Gambia's role in founding ECOWAS. It was I.M. Gaba Jahumpa who coined the acronym ECOWAS, because he was our finance minister in 1975 when ECOWAS was been created. And we have also not missed the plot because our founding fathers were very modest. Sadauda did not waste money on buying presidential jets, for example. No, he did not do that. He traveled in first class on regular flights. Some of his colleagues are still alive. For a very large part of his leadership, of his presidency, Sadauda will travel just like any other ordinary Gambian, just to protect the finances of the country. At independence, we opened only 2 high commissions, one in London and one in Dakar. And even the Dakar one was not operational until February 66, because Hassoum Ceesay, the finance minister, told the Prime Minister Jawara it was not in the budget.
Wow.
Well, the cabinet said, well, Mr. Finance Minister, and this is, I'm paraphrasing, this is in the record, Mr. Finance Minister, you mean we are not going to operationalize our high commission in Dakar? He said, no, there's no money for it. It was not in the budget. Wow. Such was, this was the fiscal discipline of our founding fathers. Yeah. I come across a file in the archives. Jawara wanted to extend some parts of State House because he had married a new wife, and all these people were bringing their children, to stay with her. And the permanent secretary at Works wrote back to the Secretary General Eric Christensen and told him, Mr. Secretary General, this work cannot proceed because there is no money.
But and to that point, Mr. Ceesay, seeing those things in the archive and you being able to even put that out there is astonishing. But also, it begs the question: how did we miss the plot in terms of when they?
No, we have not missed the plot. I don't accept. You cannot make me swallow my.
Let me clarify. Let me clarify. Miss the plot in the sense of how Jawara and his ministers, including his finance minister, were doing so well, so much so that in a profound way, something that was not included in the budget, they cannot go ahead to set that up. And then eventually his government subsumed to allegations of corruption and even perceptions of corruption.
No. Please. I lived through Jawara's government. I worked under Jawara for 6-7 years. That government was the least corrupt in Africa. No, please. These are junta, propaganda. We had a junta that was keen, and rightly so. Because if you have overthrown a 32-year-old government respected worldwide, you have to have, or you have to create, or even invent, stories to gain legitimacy. So nobody blames them for that. But Jawara's government was the least corrupt in Africa. In fact, some of these judges who presided over the commissions of inquiry in 94, 95, 96, 97, wrote memoirs. And now they were laughing at us, saying that, some of the stories, somebody was a minister for 20 years, he owned only two houses, and he was dragged before a commission. He said, that was just, laughable. A minister for 20 years, and you cannot own, two homes, and these are modest, bungalows. Some of them have written, their flimsy, So that is junta propaganda. As a historian, that's how I can call it. Well, I was not. I know that Jawara was a very, very wise leader. Look at he handled the 81 attempted coup d'etat, and I want you to give me 2 minutes or maybe 3 to speak on that, just to tell you that we have not lost the plot. Now, when he was in London attending the wedding of Princess D and Charles, now King Charles III, Kuka Sambasanyang and his people struck. That was the attempted coup of 30th July 1981. Now, it was mayhem, because till now, until he died, Kuka never told us why he armed the civilians. We ask him, but whenever you are interviewing him, if you ask him that question, he will evade. Why did you arm the civilians on 30th July 1981? When you had captured the barracks at Bakau, you had captured Radio Gambia, you had captured Bonto, you have, captured, State House and got Lady Cheryl and the children hostage. Why did you distribute those Kalashnikovs to the youths like somebody giving out early morning bread? Why was he so stupid? Because in the first hours of the coup, there was some celebration. People thought that it was gone, But, this guy, started, distributing, those, Soviet-made, guns, that had just been, donated to the Gambian government by the Russians, by the Soviets, to the youths. And before midday on that day, it was all mayhem, bloodshed, rape, looting, So that turned what he called a revolution into a misery. Now, hundreds, Amnesty said maybe 1,000. Jawara and his government said, well, 500. Maybe they agreed at cabinet, well, let's just say 500, and the world will, will accept it. But Amnesty International believe over 1,000 Gambians died between July 30 and August 4th. James Gomez, who was the administrator of the hospital, told me before he died that before he fled on the 2nd, for safety and to find food, he had counted nothing less than 700 bodies at the mortuary. Yeah. So it was a mayhem. Now, when Jawara was restored to power by the Senegalese, he handled the situation in an exemplary way that historians will have to investigate and write books about. Number one, 2,200 Gambians were arrested linked to the attempted coup. 2,200 Gambians. I know this because it's in the Gazette, Mr. Sonko. Not a single prisoner was missing. Can you imagine that?
Yes, that's huge.
Every person who was arrested was served with an arrest warrant. Some of them are still keeping them in their wallets as mementos. And every person who was arrested had his name, her name, address, next of kin in the Gazette. And any day you come to the Gambia, tell me, I'll show you the Gazette and notices. That is exemplary.
Mhm.
Of course, and many died. Many of the detainees died, in detention. The Gambia was big detention camp, Bakau School, Makati. Gambians were detained everywhere. But every one who was detained was accounted for. Not a single detainee went missing. That is a success story.
Yeah.
2,200 Gambians. Jawara and his, finance and his, justice minister, a very capable, very powerful one, Emel Sao, and the guys around him, like Hassan Jallo and Mr. Sok and others. I mean, estimated that if they were to be tried before a judge, it will take 45 years. To try those 2,200 Gambians. So what did they do? They invented a very, very effective, a very innovative way. They created something called a Detainees Review Panel, DRP, headed by Mr. Serjouf, the principal of Muslim High School. The idea was no impunity. Everybody arrested. If you do not die before, you will face the Detainees Review Panel. A file will be opened for you. They will interview you and then recommend to the Minister of Justice whether you were falsely reported, because there was a lot of false reporting. The NCP people, were, been targeted. Been slandered. You can have into trouble. You report him to the police that I saw him carry a gun at Birkama. So they arrest him. So there was a lot of denunciation. Okay, but the Senate review panel interviewed everybody, and in the end, they recommended that I think up to 100 people should face the law courts. And it is that system that the Rwandans adopted up to their genocide in 1994. Called Gachacha, alternative. Justice system. It was the Gambian, detainees review panel, model, that the Rwandans adopted, because Rwandan had over 1 million people, detained. How could you, put all those people before a judge? Now the 100 or so people, were tried by a panel of international judges. And there is another Gambian example too. Okay, judges were brought from Ghana and from Sierra Leone and from Nigeria, assisted by Gambian prosecutors and sometimes by international prosecutors from the Commonwealth. So you can see, the way we handled 1981. So even tell us that this country has never missed the plot. It was a painful, experience. Thousands died. The Chamber of Commerce estimated in those days, I think $45 million worth of property looted, destroyed. The government official, a vehicle fleet was completely, destroyed by the rebels. So it was a painful chapter in Gambian history. And to add to that, Sadauda warned Gambians not to stigmatize any community. Because after the coup, some of the heads, were communities or a certain community in Gambia. Because 8 days after he returned from Senegal, he went around the country and warned Gambians no community should be stigmatized for the mayhem that happened 2 weeks ago. People who did it did so of their own volition. They were not doing it on behalf of any community. And I think that was also a very, very good example in statesmanship. Yeah.
Did Ceesay, are you with me? Hassoum, are you with me? Okay.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm listening. I'm
Yes.
challenging you. I say, go ahead.
No, no. So my question now is that would you perhaps opine that the 1994 military takeover or coup somewhat interrupted the consolidation of that, in a way, sovereignty status that Gambia has already acquired, and the continuation of the multi-party democracy that it was also already enjoying as well? I've lost Mr. Ceesay for a second. I'm gonna try to have him back. Mr. Ceesay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. No, I was asking that uh, would it be a fair statement to make that the 1994 military coup by the junta, led by Jambe, has in fact interrupted that consolidation of the sovereignty now that we enjoy and the multi-party democracy that until at that point was the longest constitutional democracy, I think, in Africa, I suspect, before the 1994
No, no,
military
sorry.
coup.
I mean, I
Yeah.
want to clarify that from a
Okay,
historical perspective.
okay.
I think Gambians should see the junta period as a flash in the pan as far as our multi-party democratic system is concerned. Look, they attempted to ban parties, but they could not. Some parties refused to be banned. No, that's one. Two, they wanted to stay in power. The junta. Gambians said no. In fact, if you look at it, clearly, the junta rule itself lasted barely 18 months. Barely 18 months, because by February, 1996,
Mhm.
a new constitution was being drafted. The structures for the provisional independent electoral commission, were being discussed, and so on. So you can see that that period, it should not be seen as like a break. Me, I don't see it like that. I think the junta period was just like a, a sort of an internum, and let's face it, in fact, in some ways helped to strengthen our democracy, because the Independent Electoral Commission, was created, an ombudsman, was created, constitution, which we are still using, was promulgated through a referendum, not by a decree, but through a referendum. Political parties, new political parties emerge, to add to the ones that were already in existence. And if you look at the results of presidential elections of September, 1996, they are very close. The guy who won, did not win, in a landslide. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
I think, we can safely say that from 1951 to date, the Gambia have had an uninterrupted multi-party, political system.
Thank you for that. So we'll continue, and hopefully I can let you go after that, because I think it would be very unfair to our audience, and also bearing in mind the significance of this moment, considering we are going to elections in December, to not talk about the importance of ethnic identities and the role, if any, that it has played in our pre-colonial and and especially in our contemporary politics today. So
I saw that, prompt,
yes,
from your
yes,
from
yes,
your WhatsApp message,
yes, yes,
and I was itching, to address it.
yes, please.
I think it's overstated. I think it's overstated. I think it's overstated, because it is the politicians who, largely control the narrative, in the media now. I think it's overstated. I think if you look at community identities in this country, the Gambia is assigning a full coexistence and tolerance.
Mhm.
I think something should be clarified. One, sometimes when people are eager to even speak their language, it can be misconstrued. If you wear your traditional something, to illustrate where you belong to, it can be seen. It can be misconstrued. That's one. Two, also, and this you mentioned, the perception is always there.
Yes.
Just like corruption. I mean, I see Mr. Sonko. Some time ago we used to, be at the Birkama car park to catch a gelegele to Banjul. Then later I saw Mr. Sonko driving a new car. I said, see, he has stolen money.
Yes.
The perception. Do I know? Maybe your wife bought it, your friend gave it to you, your sister, bought it for you. Do I know? But my first perception is, he has stolen money.
Yeah.
So this, community identities too. I mean, perception has always been there that one group wants to be on top. I mean, that has always been there. The perception, particularly the smaller groups looking at the bigger groups. Okay, I mean, so I mean, some of the scholars who wrote about it, call it anticipatory. They want to dominate us. I mean, they are the majority, but they want to dominate us, or they are the minority. They want to dominate us. I know there are a lot of anticipatory. I mean, thinking in that. But generally, whoever have tried, race and community had failed. Of course, people have tried it. We should be sincere to the history. People have tried it. People have tried it. Without shame. But it never succeeded. I mean, if it is religion, based on religion, it failed. If it was based on, community belonging, it failed. Why? Because Gambians are very, very wise. Our social networks, our social paradigms, are so intricate, so intertwined that we are all afraid, of identities, of like underscoring identities. I mean, we intermarry. We are all bilingual. Some are even multilingual. Some are, in fact, if there's anything more than multilingual, some Gambians are. The way we attend, our religious ceremonies, our social ceremonies. You go to the markets, even in Birkama or in Serekunda, it's like a Tower of Babel. I mean, in a minute, the guy selling, will haggle in three languages. You enter the van, like I did this morning. I mean, from Birkama to my home here in Busumbala, the apprentice, will speak, four languages in 3 minutes. So these are all Gambian exceptionalisms, which make it almost impossible to implant that kind of politics. But of course, the fact that it is impossible does not mean that, adventurers will not try, and people will try, test the waters, but usually they get beaten, maybe there's they will test the waters and their toe will hit a sharp rock, and before they know it, they have changed their stand. And to conclude on that, I also want to emphasize the role, the media. Our media houses, the radio stations, the TV stations, have multilingual programming. That's significant. That does not happen in many countries. A radio station, the programming in one language. Here, we don't do that. A percentage of the program maybe heavy on one language, but almost all languages. Sometimes I wonder, the cost, to these, proprietors of radio stations, having programs in all the languages. But it is a Gambian example to the world that, coexistence is possible. Tolerance also is possible. So the short answer to your question, I think the community, affiliation that you have said, identity, I think is overstated. I think it is heavily overstated. Gambia is still a very, very tolerant society.
So, moving on, African history for a very long time, at least in terms of writing it and putting it in some form of archive or in the form of book, has been dominated by Eurocentric views, or Europeans coming and writing and narrating African history. And so I think the concept of African epistemology is taking a lot more center stage. I can't hear you. Your camera is currently is frozen. But let me know if you can hear me, and I'll continue. Can you hear me?
I must say I didn't get that part of the question clearly.
Yes. Yes. So my question is, who gets to write African history today? Because the environment or the ground used to be dominated a lot by people who are not Africans, or perhaps colonialists, or people who used to be from outside and come and record and narrate African history, that in many ways neglected the importance of African voices, or otherwise African epistemology. Includes the power of our girls, for example. So my question is really, who gets to narrate African history today?
I must say I could barely hear you on that. At the risk of going out of topic.
Yes. No, my question
I don't know.
My question
if I can beg your pardon and maybe try once again.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but it's faint. It's like breaking. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I apologize for that. I don't know why that's happening, but I was just asking whether African stories and African histories are still being narrated by outsiders. Who gets to narrate African stories today? I think we're still struggling. Dr. Ceesay cannot hear me.
Oh yes, I had that part about African history. Yes.
Yes. Who gets to narrate our history today, and what's the significance of that?
Okay. Well, who gets to narrate our history? Well,
yes.
I think we Africans should now narrate our history, because for a very, very long time, African history had been narrated to us by those who were the oppressors. They wrote the history in the proverbial the hunter's version. Okay, the hunter writes the history, and the prey does not feature. And this is very, very serious. If you look at for example, our neighbors in Guinea-Bissau, they fought for independence from 1963 until 1974. Now against the Portuguese. Now the Portuguese soldiers and generals, who were fighting against the liberation fighters of the PAIGC of Amilcar Cabral in Guinea-Bissau, have written over 600 memoirs, biographies, autobiographies, telling their story. Okay. Now I come to Guinea-Bissau, the heroes. These are the heroes, Amilcar Cabral's people. Still now, as we speak, there are less than 12 12 full, fledged accounts of the Guinea-Bissau Liberation War written by veterans. That's very sad. If you look at the liberation war in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe's, ZANU and Joshua Nkomo's, Patriotic Front. They fought a very successful liberation war against, Ian Smith and his racist UDI government in Southern Rhodesia, now called Zimbabwe. Now, there are hundreds of histories of that war written by the whites, the oppressors, and maybe just half a dozen by the liberation fighters. So for a long time, we have allowed, the oppressor, to have, the first shot at our history. And when that happens, it's dangerous because we code them. Yeah, because in academia, if you publish first, I code you.
Yes.
If I don't code you, I might be accused of not being, of not paying, enough attention to the existing literature. You see, so this is why it is high time we write our own history. And Mr. Sonko, we have to write an optimistic history of Africa. Look, we are in the United States. They are producing some of the best historians of the Civil War. All the Civil War battles, Antietam, Gettysburg, the Battle of Shiloh, the Battle of Atlanta. All these battles, the hundreds of battles of the Civil War, American Civil War, 61 to 1865, have, hundreds of historians, and they all glorify the Civil War. The American War of Independence, 1776 to 1783, led by George Washington. You have thousands of books, all of them glorifying George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and the other generals. Yeah, this is good because they want to build an America whose citizens are optimistic, feel good about their past.
Yes.
Yes, I know, you know that more than I do. You pass through their system. Before they give you your documents, you have to, tell them George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Lincoln. Sometimes even Robert Lee, the Confederates, even, you have to know something about them.
Yes.
Andrew Jackson, all the villains, who killed the Indians and even those who did the lynchings against the blacks, George Wallace, Edgar Hoover of the FBI. You must tell them a bit about all those, people before you, and they give you your, your resident permit. So that is the power of history, and it should be a history that glorifies our past, so that we can build people who are optimistic about our countries. And when I say that prompt about missing the plot, I'll say, well, this is interesting. We are in Africans, we are pessimistic. I'm surprised with all the glory, with all the resources and the riches and the opportunities at our disposal. We always look morose, awkward, downcast. Why? Because we read the wrong history. Well, if you're a Gambian, 2021, you don't know what Musa Moro did, you don't know what Edward Francis Small did, what Hassoum Ceesay did, to strengthen our accounts, the Gambia's role in forming ECOWAS, the Gambia's role in assisting in the liberation war of the ANC, of SWAPO, how poor Gambia sent money to Nelson Mandela's ANC to buy arms, how small Gambia sent money to Sam Nujoma's, SWAPO to buy arms so that they can fight for their liberation. If you don't know that, you think I mean, your country is small, but our country is not small. It's a great country. But how do we know that it is great if the history doesn't make it great? So to the short answer to your question is, we should tell African history in a way that glorifies our past, because our past is full of glories, of battles won, of great men, of great women, great rivers, beautiful mountains, hardworking people, complex. I told you about the traditional, kingship
Yes.
in Badibu,
Yes.
in Nyomi, in Guju. Those are all, glories that should be put to the young people so that they'll be proud of their Gambia. Even this back way, I tell my students, well, if you want to go the back way, it's basically you have lost, faith in your country, but they have lost faith in their country because they don't know how great
The country is.
their country is
Yes.
and the resources of our country. Because remember, and now it's difficult to see the beautiful Gambia because the Gambia's beauty is in the river, and now we are no longer, traveling along the river. If you were seeing the islands, the 18 or 19 islands we have, on this river, how beautiful, how picturesque, the bolongs, the points. You will not see the Gambia as anything but as a country of promise, and a great one for that matter. So history is very, very important.
So when I set up this interview, when we talked, one of my very good friends is going to school in Washington, D.C. as a PhD researcher. And he said, please ask Professor Ceesay, Mr. Ceesay, to talk to us about the significance of, in those days when Gambia was in power. He used to do this kind of like festivals. He used to do a lot of cultural events. We used to celebrate a lot of what we used to enjoy in those days as Gambians, as part of our history and our culture. But those things are long gone now. We don't do any of those. He said, ask him, why is those things not happening anymore in the country? What is the position of, for example, the current government, not even the current government, but even previous ones? Well, I guess not previous one, but the current government, in terms of bringing those things back to life, or our communities or village cafes or anything of that sort, to put relevance to that again.
As a matter of fact, and those things are happening, in fact, in greater numbers and scope. I tell you, Mr. Sonko, Gambians have for the past 10 years or so began to rediscover and to reappropriate their cultural heritage through community festivals. Every weekend, on the average, I get invited to 3 community.
Wow.
Yes, on average. Well, I will have a break for the Ramadan, but already the people of Buyam, have, are having their foot and puff on the 29th of March. So already I've gotten an invitation to that. So as a matter of fact, the change of government has sort of led to a cascade of community cultural festivals, which I think is good news, because what these community festivals do, one, they bring people together. For example, just 2 weeks ago, I was in Makati, Georgetown, for the Kankoron Festival, the 9th edition. You have people coming all the way from the United States, from England, from France, just to come and attend and see the Kankoron, the masking traditions, the Mandi. Yeah, all the way from France. So these are social get-togethers. Showing how our cultures unify us. We build cohesion, social cohesion through these festivals.
Lost him. Yes, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah, just before the Makati Festival, we are in Queen. They have a very,
That's
very
where
powerful
my mom is
festival
from.
there.
Yes, I know the
Well,
Queen one.
yeah,
I
and you
I
know
used
what?
to be there.
And
Uh-huh.
that festival, the process of the festival, they are using it to build a market for the women.
Wow.
So that is a link between culture and development.
Yes.
You see, the Banjul New Year, cultural festival is growing so big that even us, the organizers at the National Center for Arts and Culture, are getting a bit. I mean, I mean, overwhelmed because it is becoming such a big success.
Mhm.
You see, Sutukova and name them. Last weekend was particularly busy for us. Penyam had one, Katong, the Bainunkas, were in Jarol, sometimes, and that same weekend Bansang also. So you can see that as a matter of fact, the change of government has really, improved the the festival sphere, if you want. And we are working to revive the Roots Homecoming Festival,
Mhm.
which Jami created in 1996, so that Gambians, and Africans in the diaspora, will celebrate our role, in world history, through Kunta Kinte Island, as a place for the departure of the slaves. Kunta Kinte left there in 1767,
Mhm.
as a slave. We are working on that, to revive it. We have gone very far. There are new festivals. Yesterday somebody wrote to me, suggesting a palm wine festival, yeah, a national palm wine festival. And I can only imagine. No, just to tell you that Gambians are really, we are really appropriating our culture.
Mhm.
Somebody also wrote to have a cattle salting, like a cattle festival, where all the cattle songs, the cattle rituals, and where to milk the cattle, and modify or pacify a wild cattle, all those things, how it was done. So these are all part of the cultural agenda that we
Mhm.
have. And I want to assure our good friend that we will continue to promote this community festivals, because they promote unity,
Mhm.
they preserve our culture through showcasing, and they also have a developmental angle. As we speak, the people of Makati, collected money from the festival, and they want, to do some few development projects, on the
Mhm.
island, using the proceeds, from the festival. So these festivals are more than, entertainment
Mhm.
and cultural showcasing. They also have a developmental angle. Now that brings me um, to the role of culture in the independence struggle and after. Because you have to know that Gambia only had a radio service in 62, a few weeks before the elections in 62. Now, before that, the 10 previous years, how were our political parties communicating? How were they mobilizing? Through the griots.
Mhm.
Each political party had a posse of griots, okay? Like the
Mhm.
PPP had people like Bakari Marom and the Siko.
Mhm.
That was their signature tune. Whenever you had a Siko tune, it's a PPP rally, and the supporters will come out. The UP had, songstresses like Mari Samuel Njie, who composed songs, to mobilize, supporters. Jahumpa's, party, had their own griots. Reverend JC Five's party had their own griots. So you can see that culture was part and parcel of the mobilization against a colonialism.
Mhm.
When the 60 elections were approaching, Jawara sent a band called the Ramblers
Mhm.
to Batos to help raise funds for the PPP. That was among the first bands to play live music in the Gambia. And when the Ramblers left, other bands like the Eagles, who later became the Super Eagles, arose. I hope one day you will talk to Doyen
Welcome
I
back.
hope one day,
Mm.
I was saying, I hope one day I will speak to Mr. Okodrami, the Douanier, who will tell you more about this part. But you can see that even after independence, the Super Eagles, Vicky Blaine, Ifambundi, Gelewar, all became part and parcel of the developmental paradigm. Lalo Keba Drame, for example, he represented us at the Manding Conference in 1972 in London. Jalimia Masuso helped to put to music our national anthem. Alaji Bai Conte. Taught the Kora in America as far back as 1967. In American colleges. He turned the Kora into a world phenomenon. Alaji Bai. Amr Bansan Jobache. Was another great man of the Kora tradition. And these were all cultural ambassadors of the Gambia. Ablai Samba, and the Halam, Balabojeng, with the Fulariti. These played their instrument. They played their instruments at the Kremlin.
Wow.
I mean Kremlin.
Wow.
In Moscow.
Yes.
Lalo Keba played the Kora at number 10 Downing in 1972. Yes. So our musical and cultural heritage has been part and parcel of the Gambia's history, and I think the opportunities are there. Our artists are growing. They are getting back onto the world stage, and they are attracting a huge fan base locally and internationally among the diaspora, and we will continue to work towards facilitating artist mobility. For example, our artists be able to go outside the Gambia's cultural heritage. These are among the things that we are really working on, based on the relevant UNESCO conventions that the Gambia has signed.
Mr. Ceesay, last set of questions, and I would really love to have you back sometime, perhaps in your office where the internet is maybe a little less erratic. And I think there's a lot of comments on YouTube. People are asking, you need to bring him back. We've missed a lot. There's a lot of things that he's sharing that we cannot, really follow because of the interruption with the internet. So hopefully we can set some time without having to do 2 hours. We can probably do maybe an hour.
I know it was risky. It was risky to.
Yes. So even during an early hour.
Maybe next time we do it early morning. I say maybe next time maybe we do it early morning and Gambian time.
Yes.
Sometimes the network is a lot better.
Yes,
I would have loved to do it in my study so that I can be pointing out at photos and archival material.
Yes.
But you said the light was not good enough.
Yes. No, for sure. So finally, you've wrote extensively. You are perhaps the leading published Gambian historian, at least that I know. There's also amazing other historians as well from the Gambia. But if I should ask you, what do you hope your work leaves behind, or what do you hope your work you want to be remembered for in terms of the really substantial amount of work that you've done in Gambian history?
Well, yes. Thank you very much. I have worked on that. This is the new work I did on Mazar Sar. I am not happy you have not asked me about Mazar Sar Saga 73, but maybe another time you will.
Yes.
I also did a book.
Even your recent book about that.
I also did a book on the Lebanese Gambian politician Henry Madi.
Wow.
He built the Atlantic Hotel and was the first MP for Bakau, 1954 to 1960. Just to tell you how tolerant Gambians are. We have had a very tolerant political culture. I am also the unofficial, if you like, biographer of P.S. Njie.
Wow.
These are just 3 books I was able. to young avoid into studying.
Oh,
So,
yes.
so basically, I am never tiring of studying and writing about Gambian history.
Mhm.
I also write, for for academia.
Mhm.
I do the journal things,
Yeah.
which only few people read, of course.
Well, I've seen them. I've
I
seen a lot
publish
of them.
well, yeah, I publish a lot of things in history journals, highly rated journals, but sometimes we are not, well read, or maybe a few professors will read us,
Yes.
but I do this, popular history books, just to allow the ordinary reading public who don't have to go through footnotes and endnotes and citations, to appreciate aspects of our history. Now, like I'm doing now, I also do a lot, on the TV, on the radio.
Mhm.
One, it's part of my job, as the head of the National Center for Arts and Culture
Mhm.
and the museum curator. So this is really a labor of love.
Mhm.
I get paid, to read the history of our country.
Mhm.
Now it is important because we have to continue to build patriots.
Mhm.
Just a moment ago, I was telling you how you people there build patriotism through
Mhm.
history.
Mhm.
You remember,
Yes.
the people you call founding fathers. Although
Yes.
they have their darker side, not so. Even Jefferson has a darker side. He owned
They
slaves,
do.
huh?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and and he slept with some of them. Like
Mhm.
Sally Hemings.
Mhm.
Washington. George Washington had, he was a hero, but he had his, so all heroes have their,
Like I said.
darker side. But they
Mhm.
don't teach you that in the universities there.
No.
you know so this is why the history should be told in a way that patriots can be built. I mean how can you uh, be a patriot if you are not aware of the history of your country? It is not possible.
No.
There is a direct correlation between building patriotism and historical consciousness.
Mhm.
I mean, Vladimir Putin, is a good example.
Mhm.
He seems to know a lot of Russian history,
Mhm.
which is why he is putting his foot down on many things, so that mistakes of the past cannot be repeated.
Mhm.
So I do this to inspire um, my countrymen and women into patriotic consciousness.
Mhm.
We read the history, P.S. Njie. How he fought for independence. He was in power just 15 months.
Mhm.
He brought electricity to Basi in 1962. He brought us Radio Gambia.
Mhm.
The Burumen Bridge, he built it. The first, permanent bridge. He built it. A brilliant lawyer who mentored, people into politics,
Mhm.
into law, into governance. You know, this, Henry Madi. I'm telling you, he was born in Kuntawa in 1912. His father came to the Gambia in 1893. The Gambian Lebanese community. Spoke the Gambian languages. Represented Bakau. The people of Bakau elected him on 2 occasions
Mhm.
as their member of parliament. He took electricity to Bakau in 1955. So these are the kind of stories that we tell. The
Yeah.
Matarsar saga. Like we
Mhm.
said, I will not go deep into that, but it is very, very informative.
Yes.
How the state, when it wills, when it likes, it can destroy
Mhm.
even people of good standing. The power of the state. How it is wisdom. It is wisdom to be afraid of the state.
Mhm.
If you have a friend who tell you, "I don't care," I am not afraid of government. Please pray for him. And let him read the Motarsar book. How
Mhm.
government, how the state if it likes, can conspire and destroy
Mm-hmm.
evil men of good standing, So these are all, things we try to do.
Yeah.
Well, some governments appreciate it, and we are also emboldened.
Mm-hmm.
Like currently, I am doing serious work at the archives, and I'll tell you on what. Well, maybe a book will never appear on this, but maybe at least a journal article will come. In the 19 the year the in 1965,
Mm-hmm.
when the Gambia became independent, the Russians and some of these communist countries, Romania, Bulgaria, were under the sharp eyes of Jawara's intelligence service called Special Branch. Later, he
Wow.
presented in 80. But before that, Jawara had efficient intelligence service called the Special Branch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you had all these Gambian youths hungry for knowledge who wanted to study in Russia. Okay, because it was hard to get a scholarship, to a Commonwealth country.
Mm-hmm.
So soon after independence, Gambian youth started to, eye Russia, to go there to read. But Jawara and his civil servants, who were very powerful, because he made them so, were not eager for Gambians to go to Russia, because they thought that if they go after 5 years, 6 years, they will cause a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
A communist, sort of, take over.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm currently working on that.
Wow.
How the special branch, was denying passports, making sure that some of these guys got, some of them were being, bribed. They said, okay, don't go to Russia. We'll give you a scholarship to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Please don't go to Russia. People like Wajwara were adamant. He went to Bulgaria and later Romania.
Mm-hmm.
People like Dr. Koran, who recently died, were
Mm-hmm.
also adamant. He went to Russia, qualified as a medical doctor, Willy Balde. And there's this brave woman called Fatimata Jallo, who currently lives in the States, the first female dentist. When Jawara had that, she was to fly to Russia. In late 1965, Jawara asked the permanent secretary at Education, Mr. Jones, please call this young girl, discourage her. Jones tried. The young lady said, okay, I'll not go. That same night, she crossed the ferry to catch her flight, to Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
And she became our first female, dentist. I hear she's still, they do not get it, in the country. And they were head of great, Yeah, so in the coming years, and I think that will be very interesting, how the special branch, follow these young Gambians, to discourage them, even when the Russian diplomats came to the hotel, the special branch will, tell them, whom they met, whom they entertained, how much, money they spent at the bar, So these are all related to the Cold War. But Jawara kept a very cool head, you would see some of the civil servants were telling him, no, let's deny them passport. Jawara said, no, the constitution. Well, they are citizens. How can you deny them passports just because they want to go to Russia? So he was a level-headed leader. He never allowed himself to get caught in the shenanigans of the Cold War. He visited Russia in 1975, the same month. He dined with, the Queen. at the Balmoral Castle. He maintained links with the Russians and maintained links with the Soviets. In fact, it was the Soviets who gave him the classic of laid hands on to cause the mayhem of July 30th, 1981. If the truth is told, Jawara was a unique leader who was able to juggle, the intricacies, the complexities of the Cold War. He did business. In other words, he hunted with the hares and ran with the hounds. He was such a man of wisdom. Yeah.
Well, Hassoum, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. For those of you in the Gambia and also in the United States who are interested in his book, you can find some of them on Amazon. I was able to look at some of them. They are still available to buy on Amazon. I'm sure some of them are also available in bookshops in the Gambia, especially for a lot of young people who are interested to learn about African history and particularly Gambian history. I certainly encourage you to check it out, as I found them extremely useful and very poignant for various purposes.
Yes, and also another time you have to ask about Gambia's role in Pan-Africanism, of Pan-Africanism. The greatest theoretician of Pan-Africanism was Professor Jebes Ayolang, the civil service. He left academia, came in 71, and rose to the rank of Secretary General Office of the President. He was the greatest theoretician of Pan-Africanism in Gambia. The role that Gambians played in Kwame Nkrumah's government. You'll be surprised. Kwame Nkrumah's mother had Gambia living with her in her house in Accra. Bodyguard, in fact, the most faithful bodyguard who died of the Gambia Ports Authority. I have done a whole work on that, and maybe another time. Maybe when we are doing the 65th anniversary, we are still alive. You will ask questions about that.
No, I do have so much that I would love to cover with you, and I'll check with you. We'll do a call, and we can figure out a time in the morning when you're at the office or in the library where there's better internet connectivity, and we can sit down. We can talk about the books too, because I know you also recently in June wrote about Gambians who tried to go for the pilgrimage in Mecca and how colonialism made that almost impossible. They had. I want to talk about all of those things, but internet has been bad.
And it's so always.
Yes.
And those who used to in Europe in the 40s and 50s. I did a study on that. We have always been mobile. The Gambian youth had always been eager to, to go and explore.
Yes, totally. Yeah. But thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. And I want to give a shout out to Sal Tal, because Sal really made this possible. He's like, you need to reach out to.
You mean Salute Star Square?
Yes, Salutal. Yep, Salutal.
Yeah, and the father Ambassador Ibutal was my teacher, a mentor, and good friend. We spend endless hours in the office at the museum discussing Gambian history. All what I know about the history of Gambian foreign policy, he told me, because he was there from 1966, onwards. Gambia and Gaddafi, how Jawara, won over Gaddafi. To create the the boss service in '76. He was there. The Gambia and the EU He was assistant to Sirip Diba when he was ambassador to Brussels, and he replaced him. So the father is my, was my good friend,
That's nice.
and he worked on a manuscript that he wanted to publish. Unfortunately, and when the children, Mr. Tal included, I always that your father will be happy if that book comes out, and I hope if he's listening or watching, he can do it. I mean, Mr. Salutal can do it. I mean, and I think he should do everything possible. The manuscript in Ibuta, it will add value to Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassoum. It's been really great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much. This is a serious program, like I said. I watch it. It's serious. This is high end. This is high end intellectualism. It's scholarly. And please, let me give you a warning. We are good at banalizing good things, we trivialize serious matters.
Yes.
But please don't accept it. Please don't accept it to be, banalized. Don't accept it to be trivialized by anybody. Keep the standards high. Even if you think that this one is not good enough to broadcast, just trash it, and maybe call me next week. I will do a better one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.